Why did we lose? That was the question the hatchlings asked, over and over. And every time, old strategist Krez Voln would sit by the scorched remains of the obsidian monument and chuckle, a low, rasping sound that was equal parts humor and trauma. Because we thought war was a science, he would say, and the humans treated it like a living, breathing art project. The young ones didn't understand. They looked out at the crumbling skyline of New Zealand Prime and saw only the aftermath, not the lesson. Krez's oldest scar, the one that carved a line across his mandibles, ached when he remembered. Humanity had been an afterthought, a minor bipedal species on a damp world, still squabbling over dirt, while the Tyrex Dominion perfected energy shields and gravity blades. When humanity reached the stars, it wasn't their technology that shocked the galaxy, it was their psychology. We scanned them for weapons, Krez muttered, tapping the side of his battle-worn skull. We didn't think to scan their imaginations. The first engagement was supposed to be a simple demonstration of Tyrex superiority. 3 Dominion war claws against a ragtag human defense fleet. Predictable, efficient, textbook. Instead, the Dominion's command cruiser, the Righteous Ascension, suffered catastrophic hull failure within 90 seconds of contact. How? Krez still remembered the moment the human message blared across open channels. One phrase, shouted in a dozen languages, vibrating with chaotic glee. Surprise! We brought leftovers. Seconds later, hundreds of decommissioned mining platforms, hastily retrofitted with magnetic rail thrusters, rained from orbit like a scrapyard apocalypse. No pattern, no elegant formation, just pure, glorious improvisation. Sir, Krez's tactical officer had said at the time, their formations make no sense. No, Krez had growled, they're not forming, they're scheming. That was humanity's true weapon. Not their ships, not their guns, their unholy ability to weaponize creativity under fire. While the Dominion's perfect battle doctrines crumbled trying to predict non-existent patterns, humans adapted mid-battle, improvised missile pods, jury-rigged plasma scatterguns, a shuttle that somehow became a battering ram after being wrapped in starship hull plating and labeled "Friendship is Pain." Krez had laughed even then, sitting in the flaming wreckage of his command center, not out of joy, but out of pure, grim admiration. They didn't just fight the battle, he told the hatchlings now. They rewrote it while it was still happening. The young one shivered. One brave hatchling raised a claw. But if they're so primitive, how could they outfight the Dominion? Krez's mandibles clicked. Because, little one, he said, leaning close, you cannot outcode madness. You cannot outlogic a species that practices chaos as a hobby, and you cannot predict a warrior who calls defeat a learning opportunity. He tapped his chest, right where his heart still stubbornly beat. No, he said, voice low and dangerous. You can only survive them. If they let you. The hatchlings leaned in closer, hanging on every word. Krez Voln's one remaining eye gleamed with the kind of haunted amusement only survivors carried. We thought it was a fluke, he said. A lucky shot, a desperate gambit, so we sent more fleets. He tapped his claw against the scorched rock beneath him. 7 precision fleets, perfectly balanced forces, flawless logistics, each one eaten alive by human ingenuity before they even finished deploying. Krez remembered the second major engagement all too vividly. Dominion analysts spent weeks modeling every possible human strategy based on traditional warfare principles. Flanking, encirclement, siege warfare, all perfectly logical, all perfectly useless. Because humans didn't follow playbooks. They weaponized mistakes. We monitored their formations, Krez said, his voice lowering conspiratorially. We saw ships break formation, scatter like panicked birds. He paused. We thought it was panic, he chuckled darkly. No, it was bait. Half the Dominion's forward assault cruisers repositioned to exploit the gap, only to find themselves led straight into a minefield made from the hollowed corpses of human freighters, each one packed with crude but brutally effective magnetic explosives. Sir, Krez's old tactical officer had said at the time, they're sacrificing assets recklessly. No, Krez had replied grimly, watching the Dominion fleet peel apart like wet paper. They're sacrificing your expectations. In orbit above Velthros Station, the humans deployed another horror. Improvised gravity bombs, projectiles that didn't explode immediately, but instead detonated localized singularities mid-formation, shredding Dominion ships like cosmic paper shredders. And how were these terrifying weapons housed? Not in sleek carriers, not in precision-built deployment platforms. No, the humans dropped them out of retrofitted bulk freighters covered in graffiti that said things like, "Hold my beer" and "Yeet Cannon V2." Krez clacked his mandibles. They didn't just fight better, they fought louder, they fought stupider, and somehow that made them unstoppable. Another hatchling trembled. But why? Why would anyone fight like that? Krez's expression darkened. Because to them, war isn't just about survival. It's an extension of creativity. It's a grim festival of innovation. Every battle, a new arena for madness and brilliance. The hatchlings sat in stunned silence. Somewhere beyond the ruined cityscape, an old Terran banner flapped inside the toxic wind. It simply read, "Experiment 626 was just the beginning." Krez sighed. "You see, little ones, humans don't see victory the way we do. They don't crave order. They don't cling to tradition." He leaned back against the broken monument. "No," he muttered, a ghost of a grin flashing across his face. "They crave possibility. Possibility and payback." The sun dipped low behind the wreckage of Velthro Station, casting long shadows across the broken fields where monuments to the Dominion's former glory lay half-buried. Krez Voln shifted on his battered seat, his voice turning quieter, heavier. "You want to know the worst part?" he asked. "It wasn't their weapons. It wasn't their chaos. It was their memory." The hatchlings blinked, confused. Krez's mandibles twitched slightly, a grim smile. "When we burn cities, we erase them from our history. When we lose battles, we rewrite the records to soften the shame. But humans?" He tapped his chest again. "Humans remember. Every loss, every betrayal, every stupid mistake. They carve it into their bones. They teach it to their children." He paused, staring into the distance like he could still hear the Terran anthem rumbling through the ruins. They don't hide from failure. They build on it, layer after layer, year after year, until their defeat becomes the foundation for something even more terrifying. Krez remembered standing aboard the bridge of the last surviving Dominion flagship as Earth's third expeditionary fleet arrived. Not gleaming warships, but brutal, ugly constructions stitched together for one purpose: adaptability. The humans didn't come seeking peace. They came with blueprints for vengeance. Their lead battleship, the HSS Relentless Improvisation, was literally still being welded together during battle, with engineers bolting on new weapon systems mid-firefight. Krez's communications chief had screamed, "Sir, their ship isn't finished." And Krez had just stared at the incoming monstrosity and whispered, "No," because he knew. He knew there was no version of this ending that didn't involve humanity triumphing through sheer, stubborn will. The Relentless Improvisation didn't just fight, it evolved mid-combat. Plasma cannons where a cargo bay had been minutes earlier, makeshift rail turrets sprouting like weeds from the hull, drones hacked together from emergency supplies and whatever wasn't bolted down. They didn't just counter strategies, they adapted faster than anyone could invent a counter strategy. Krez leaned in toward the hatchlings, his voice almost a growl. Humans are not terrifying because they love war. They're terrifying because they learned to love surviving it. He stood slowly, bones creaking, his old armor plates rattling like dry leaves. "You think it's over?" he asked, voice low. "You think they're done just because the Dominion fell?" The hatchlings glanced nervously at each other. One spoke up, trembling. "But they don't have anyone left to fight, right?" Krez's smile widened, sharp and weary. "No," he said. "They'll find something. Even if it's themselves. Even if it's the silence." He turned away, walking slowly into the twilight as the tattered Terran flag fluttered high above the ruins. And somewhere, carried on the poisonous wind, came the faint echo of a human battle chant, half prayer, half threat. "We adapt, we overcome, we remember." Still here? Subscribe. You clearly have the survival instincts of someone who would weaponize duct tape and regret nothing.